Welcome to Programming with Professor Califf. Today I'd like to talk about some shortcuts in Java. One of the things we frequently want to do in programs is to modify the current value of a variable. To change a variable's value, we need to first determine its current value on the right-hand side of the assignment, then do the computation required to make the change we want, and then finally store the new value back into the variable. If we're using good, meaningful names, that can become a little long-winded, as here, where we have num pizzas sold is assigned num pizzas sold plus 1. So Java provides some shortcuts. The most commonly used of these shortcuts are the increment and decrement operators. There are actually two versions of each of these. There's a pre-increment or pre-decrement, where the operator is written before the variable name and it's done before anything else in the same statement. Then we also have a post-increment or post-decrement, where the operator is written after the variable name and is done after anything else in the same statement. I'll demonstrate what I mean by the increment or decrement happening before or after the rest of the statement after I introduce the other shortcuts. Both versions of these operators work the same if they're in a statement alone, as I've shown here. Num pizza sold plus plus, or plus plus num pizza sold, accomplish exactly the same thing as num pizza sold is assigned num pizza sold plus 1. It adds 1 to the value of the variable. Similarly, the minus minus operator subtracts 1 from the variable's value. Since adding 1 and subtracting 1 are very common operations, these operators can be quite useful and you'll see them fairly frequently. Another set of shortcuts that Java provides is the specialized assignment operators. These are operators that do both an arithmetic operation and assignment. There's one of these specialized assignment operators for each of the arithmetic operators. Most of them are not much used. Addition is probably the most common. Here I have a couple of examples. First, num pizzas sold plus equals 1. We do read that plus equals rather than plus is assigned or plus gets because those others sound just a little bit odd. This does exactly the same thing as num pizzas sold plus plus. It adds 1 to the value of the variable. So it's not much used with 1, of course. More common would be the next example where I have total sold plus equals current sales. So that would mean the same thing as total sold is assigned total sold plus current sales. The best way to understand these operators is actually to try them out. So let's pull up Eclipse and experiment a little. I'm going to start by making a new Java project, and we'll call that operator experiments. And I'm going to keep it from making the module info.java file because we're doing something very small. Right-click on the source file and make a new class, which I will call operator experiments with no space in it. And I'm going to go ahead and have it make main for me as usual. So let's declare a few variables and give them values. So want a few integers, I'll make that 2, and num2 will give the value 3, and num3 I'll give the value 5. Then I'm going to go ahead and make a couple of doubles. So the first thing I want to try out is just to do a little bit of this assignment. So plus equals num1 plus equals 1, or let's make it 2 to make it more interesting. Let's go ahead and print that out. What we expect to see is that num1 has had 2 added to it, and then we've stored it back in to the value num1, to the variable num1. So let's save that and run it. Apparently I didn't actually save it. And we get 4, which is what we'd expect. 2 plus 2 is 4. And we put that back in. Well, that's not super exciting, but let's play with a little bit else. So I said that we had this increment and decrement thing. First of all, let's just do a couple of them. So if I say num2 plus plus and num1 minus minus, let's go ahead, let's go ahead and copy paste. Make this second one 2. And see what happens there. And we'll see that num2 was 3, and we added 1 to it, so now it's 4. And num1 was 4 after this, and we subtracted 1 from it, so it is now 3. So they're simply adding 1, subtracting 1, as we would expect. Now I do want to take a look and show you what happens when we actually use the increment and decrement inside a larger statement. This whole business of happening before or after the rest of the statement. So I'm going to do num1 gets num2 plus 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 2. And then I want to print out num1 and num2 again. Okay, so what will happen here? We're going to get the values 6 for num1 and 5 for num2. Now, if we're adding 2 to num2, we would expect that num1 would be 2 greater than the value of num2. But what's happening here is that the post increment waits until after we've already done the rest of the equation. So we take num2, which at the end of the previous statement is 4. We add 2 to it. We put that into the num1, giving us the 6 here. And only after that is all done do we actually add 1 to num2 to make it 5. So let's see what happens then if I switch this around so that I do the plus plus before I do the num2, before I do the rest of it. So with pre-increment, what we're going to get is that num1 is 7. Num2 is still 5 because it was still 4, and then we added 1 to it, so it ended up as 5. The question is when we did the addition of the 1. And in this case, we do it before we do the rest of it. We go in and first we add 1 to num2, and then we do everything else. So this is the difference. It can be quite confusing in some circumstances. So you want to make sure you understand this, and really you probably don't want to use these operators inside a statement unless it's really important to do so. Do want to show you a couple of other things. I want to make sure that we understand precedence. So these assignment operators are exactly that. They're a version of the assignment operator. The assignment operator has to happen after everything else in the arithmetic expression that we have. So if I do something like num3 gets, times equal num2 plus num1, I need to understand that the num2 plus num1 piece is going to happen first, even though I'm using the multiplication, and we're used to thinking of that as higher precedence. In this particular case, the multiplication is part of an assignment. So that will not happen until everything on the right-hand side has been computed. So let's prove that. And we see that num3 is 60. And the reason for that is that we've come in here and said 5 times num2, which is at this point is 5, plus num1, which at this point is 7, so 12 times 5 is 60. One other thing I want to point out is where we deal with the types and assignment and so forth. So if I say val1 divide equals 4, in this particular case, we're going to see that we do floating point division because val1 is a double and it is involved in the computation. So we see that we get 2 divided by 4 and val1 is in fact 0.5 as expected. However, we need to understand that that's not going to make a difference if we do division on the other side. So just as if we divide two integers and then we do something else with them outside of these special operators, the same thing will be true here. So if I have val2 plus equal num2 divided by num5, or num3, sorry, then I print out val2 val2 here is not going to change because num2 divided by num3 is integer division and will be equals. I encourage you to do some more experimentation until you feel comfortable with your understanding of these shortcuts. Note that you never need to use them yourself. I really encourage you not to use them until you feel very comfortable with their meaning. In general, using them too much can lead to code that is more confusing and harder to read. Even if you never use them yourself, however, you do need to understand them because you will end up needing to read code that includes them. So, thanks for watching and keep on programming.